video of the Karmelo Anthony saga has been released. So now we get to see what they saw in the courtroom.
Hello everybody, I'm an advocate for Karmelo Anthony. My name is T, and when I went to see the video, they ask if you want to see it from either 2 minutes before the stabbing or 11 minutes before. So I chose 11 minutes. From the moment she pressed play, Karmelo Anthony was already sitting up underneath that canopy. And he was sitting there for at least 8 to 9.5 minutes. You see, well, I saw a boy in a black hoodie go over to him first, and then they left out of the tent, and then you see coming across the field was another 6 boys. When they got to the bleachers, one, he went out of frame, and the other one sat at the bottom. But the remaining 4, they went directly to Karmelo Anthony, and like T said before, it was a brief conversation, and then all you see is commotion. And we know from the interviews that Hunter did, we know that Hunter was, in fact, up underneath that tent. The next thing you see, you can see Karmelo, in the midst of them assaulting him, you can see Karmelo trying to back out, but he gets pulled back forward. The next thing you see is Karmelo, he comes shooting out the back, but he's still not standing. And he had to like kind of crab crawl backwards, and he had to like jerk away from them because they still had a hold of his hoodie. He goes up a couple bleachers and he's looking around for which way to go. He runs diagonally down the bleachers and then he falls. At the time of him falling, that's when I noticed another 3 boys coming down the bleachers chasing after him. But once Karmelo got up, he took off. You didn't see him for the rest of the video.
The video was supposed to end the argument. Instead, it restarted it. More than a year after a teenager lost his life at a Texas high school track meet, a judge released footage the public had never seen before: surveillance video, police body camera recordings, emergency audio, and investigative materials that finally allowed millions of people to witness parts of the timeline for themselves. What followed was not clarity. It was controversy. Because buried inside those newly released recordings was a moment that immediately reignited one of the most divisive criminal cases in recent American memory. A police officer approaches a teenager. The officer identifies him. Then the teenager responds, "I'm not alleged. I did it."
It's the alleged suspect.
Okay. I am. No, I'm not. I know how it goes. I'm not alleged. I did it.
Okay.
That is body cam video of an officer arriving on scene after Karmelo Anthony had already been placed in handcuffs. And in that body cam, you can hear Anthony tell the officer that he is not alleged to have stabbed Austin Metcalf. He says he did it.
6 words. 6 words that spread across news broadcasts, social media feeds, podcasts, court discussions, and living rooms across the country. And yet those 6 words answered almost nothing. Because the real question was never who did it. The real question is how a confrontation that lasted only moments transformed an ordinary school sporting event into a tragedy that changed multiple lives forever. On April 2, 2025, 2 student athletes arrived at a track meet in Frisco, Texas. Before the day was over, one would never return home. The other would be facing a murder charge. For months, the public tried to piece together what happened using witness accounts, police reports, courtroom testimony, and competing narratives online.
Frisco 911, what is the location of the emergency?
Hi, we're at Kuykendall Stadium. My friend just got stabbed.
Okay, do you know who stabbed him?
We have no clue. He was sitting in our tent, but you need to send an ambulance right now.
They're on the way, okay? Give me a description of the person that stabbed him.
He was wearing a gray Essentials hoodie. He was black. He's standing out on the track right now.
He's standing on the track?
Yes.
Okay.
His blue sweatpants on and gone.
Okay, and what did he stab your friend with?
I don't know. My friend's bleeding everywhere.
Okay. And where was he stabbed at?
The chest.
Okay. And do you still see the person that stabbed him, or did he leave?
It was Austin. Austin got stabbed in the chest. I'm sorry, what did you say?
The person that stabbed him, is he still there? Do you still see him?
Then the videos were released. And instead of bringing everyone to the same conclusion, they seemed to push people even farther apart. Some viewers watched the footage and believed it reinforced the jury's decision. Others watched the exact same footage and insisted it strengthened the argument for self-defense. How is that possible? How can thousands of people look at the same evidence and reach completely different conclusions? What happened beneath that yellow tent during a weather delay? Why did the jury ultimately reject the self-defense claim? What did the newly released footage reveal that the public had never been able to see before? And most importantly, did the videos actually change the story? Or did they simply expose how differently people interpret the same event? Before hearing the full story, there is one simple question. If a confrontation lasts only seconds, can a single decision in that moment change the course of multiple lives forever? Yes or no? Because this case is about far more than one encounter between two teenagers. It became a national conversation about self-defense, about accountability, about race, about media narratives, about misinformation, about how quickly public opinion forms before all the facts are known, and about two families whose lives became permanently connected by a single afternoon. One family lost a son. Another watched a teenager's future disappear inside a courtroom. The legal case has reached a verdict. The sentence has been handed down. But the debate never truly ended. In many ways, it intensified when the footage became public. Because the videos do not begin with chaos. They begin with something ordinary. Teenagers waiting out a weather delay. Athletes gathering beneath tents. Friends talking. People checking phones. A scene so normal that nobody looking at it would imagine it was about to become the center of a national controversy. Yet hidden inside those ordinary moments are the final seconds before everything changed. And what the newly released footage reveals about those seconds remains the reason this case continues to divide people even today.
What we saw inside the courtroom was a grainy, hard to see video, but there was a lot of people outside the courtroom who said that they went to ISD and watched the footage and said that it was clear, and they said that they saw more than what we were shown. Can you speak on that?
Well, so Nick, you know I wasn't in there, right? But I can tell you I did see the video at Frisco ISD. And the video that at Frisco ISD, it's not like you can sit there and look at the pimple on someone's face, but you can identify what's there, right? In front of you. And so what has been described to me, is like, no, you could at least kind of know and count how many people right there.
We can count how many bodies, but we can't see like faces. You know what I mean? Like we could see like, okay, somebody sitting right there, somebody sitting right there, but we couldn't see like Karmelo in Austin's face, or you know what I mean? It just was like kids there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were saying that they were able to see him getting jumped. I couldn't see that. So I was wondering if you guys saw something different.
No, it's not, I didn't see that with that video. No. I didn't see him getting jumped, or you know what I mean? Like I saw movement over there. I saw that there was multiple people around him, but I didn't see he was getting, you know what I mean, like the altercation. No.
On the morning of April 2nd, 2025, there was nothing to suggest that a district track meet in Frisco, Texas, would become the focus of national attention. Students arrived carrying backpacks, athletic gear, water bottles, and expectations for a typical day of competition. Among them was Austin Metcalf, a student athlete from Memorial High School. Friends, coaches, and family members later described him as someone who took athletics seriously and approached school with the same level of commitment. He was known among classmates as a leader, a teammate, and a young man with plans for the future. Like many teenagers preparing for adulthood, he was focused on the next stage of life rather than the possibility that a routine school event could become his final day. Elsewhere at the same meet was Karmelo Anthony, a student-athlete from Centennial High School. Before April 2nd, there was no widely reported criminal history associated with him.
Anyone. My son was defending himself.
What stuck out to me, number one, was the all-white jury. But I was trying to be, all right, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, the truth is on our side.
What do you say to his grieving family?
It's unfortunate to where nobody wins. We've all been hurt by this.
He was also attending the event as a competitor and participant in a normal school activity. That detail would later become important. Because when people looked back on the case, many searched for warning signs. They searched for clues. They searched for moments that might explain what happened. But the reality presented in court was far less dramatic. Two teenagers arrived at a school sporting event. Neither knew their names would eventually appear in national headlines. As the day unfolded, weather conditions created delays in the competition schedule. Athletes gathered beneath tents and sheltered areas around the stadium while waiting for updates. The atmosphere was familiar to anyone who has attended a school sporting event. Conversations drifted between sports, school, upcoming events, and the ordinary concerns of teenage life. Students checked their phones. Teammates joked with one another. Coaches monitored schedules and weather reports. Nothing about the scene suggested that investigators, attorneys, reporters, and jurors would one day examine those same moments frame by frame. The newly released surveillance footage reinforces that reality. The images show students moving through the area in a way that appears routine and unremarkable. There is no visible sign that a major incident is about to occur. And that may be one of the most unsettling aspects of the case. Looking back, everything appears ordinary. Looking forward, everything is about to change. For Austin Metcalf, it was another day representing his school. For Karmelo Anthony, it was another day representing his own. Neither could have known that their paths were about to cross. Not during a championship race. Not during an official competition. But during a weather delay. A pause in the day's events. A brief interruption that placed students from different schools in shared spaces around the stadium. One decision. One location. One unexpected interaction. Those factors would soon place both teenagers in the same area at the same time. And according to witness testimony presented later in court, the entire chain of events began because of a tent. What happened next would unfold in less than a minute. The newly released footage does not capture every word that was exchanged. That fact remains important. Because while investigators, attorneys, and jurors would later reconstruct the timeline, questions about specific statements continued to generate debate long after the event itself. What is clear is that Karmelo Anthony entered an area associated with Memorial High School athletes during the weather delay. Students noticed. Questions followed. Witnesses later provided accounts describing concerns about why he was there. At first, the interaction appeared verbal. People spoke. Others watched. The situation attracted attention, but nothing yet suggested the consequences that would follow. Then the conversation became more confrontational. According to testimony presented during the legal proceedings, students told Anthony to leave the area. Different witnesses remembered different details. Some recalled particular phrases. Others focused on tone rather than exact words. That variation is common in high-stress situations and became part of the broader discussion surrounding the case. What remained consistent across testimony was the basic sequence. A disagreement developed. The disagreement escalated. And attention shifted toward the exchange taking place beneath the tent. One question lingered throughout the investigation. Exactly who said what? Even after the trial, people continued debating that point. But another part of the timeline became far less disputed. Witnesses testified that Anthony warned Austin Metcalf not to touch him. Moments later, according to testimony, physical contact occurred. Then the situation changed instantly. The confrontation that had been verbal only seconds earlier became something far more serious. Students nearby reacted with confusion. Some stepped back. Others struggled to understand what had just happened. From Austin Metcalf's perspective, what began as an attempt to address an unwanted presence beneath the tent had escalated with extraordinary speed. From the perspective of nearby students, events appeared to move faster than they could process. And from the perspective of coaches and adults in the area, attention shifted immediately toward an unfolding emergency. At first, not everyone understood the seriousness of the situation. Some witnesses later indicated they did not immediately realize what had occurred. That confusion lasted only moments. Then concern spread rapidly through the crowd. The atmosphere changed. The casual conversations disappeared. Athletes who had been focused on competition were suddenly focused on something else entirely. A normal school event had become the scene of a crisis. And within moments, Austin Metcalf required urgent medical assistance. The next few minutes would generate emergency calls, dispatch communications, and a response that would later become part of the public record. But while attention focused on Austin, another question was beginning to emerge. Where was Karmelo Anthony? The answer would become clearer as investigators arrived and witnesses began describing what they had seen. Meanwhile, efforts to help Austin continued. Students, coaches, and first responders moved quickly. The sense of shock was immediate.
It's up to you. That's fine. This is closer. Okay. Let me do one more little check of you, okay? Yes, sir. You don't mind for reaching your pockets, anything like that? You good?
You can. You're just wearing this one pair of pants? No, I'm wearing some little underpants. Oh yeah, but did it not block anything? No, ma'am, I don't think so. Okay.
All right. What's your name, man?
Karmelo Anthony, Karmelo.
Okay.
Pricing.
Have a seat here real quick, man. Watch your head. Let me check your hood here, buddy, okay?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what, lean this way so you're not resting on your hands, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, see a little bit of blood on your hands there, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
402, I'm on scene.
So your first name is Karmelo?
Yes, sir. Karmelo.
Let's see, hold on one second.
Is he gonna be okay?
I don't know yet, man. Karmelo, C-A-R-A.
K-A-R.
K-A-R.
M-E-L-O.
M-E-L-O, Karmelo. What's your last name?
Anthony.
A-N-T-H. O-N-Y. What grade are you in?
I'm in 12th grade.
10th grade? You go to Emerson?
No, sir.
Where do you go? Centennial. Okay.
I'm in 12th grade.
12th grade?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, Centennial. All right, sit tight for me real quick, bud, all right?
For many people present that day, the reality of what had happened was difficult to comprehend. Only minutes earlier, they had been waiting for weather conditions to improve. Now they were witnessing an emergency unfold in front of them. The newly released recordings provide a clearer understanding of those moments. Emergency calls captured the urgency of the situation. Dispatchers received information from people attempting to explain rapidly changing circumstances. Responders worked to gather facts while assistance was being coordinated. The recordings reveal confusion, concern, and the challenge of managing a fast-moving incident involving dozens of witnesses. For families watching from home, it is difficult to imagine how quickly an ordinary day can transform. A sporting event. A weather delay. A disagreement. Then suddenly, everything is different. That reality became central to the national conversation surrounding the case. People debated legal questions. People debated responsibility. But many remained focused on a simpler question. How could a situation that appeared so ordinary produce such devastating consequences? As emergency efforts continued, law enforcement officers began locating individuals connected to the incident. One of those individuals was Karmelo Anthony. Minutes after the confrontation, officers encountered him. Their interaction would later become one of the most discussed pieces of evidence in the entire case. Because when body camera footage was eventually released to the public, viewers witnessed a moment that immediately captured national attention. An officer identified Anthony. The conversation continued. And then came a statement that would be replayed countless times across news reports, social media discussions, and courtroom analysis. A statement that many people believed revealed something important. A statement that others interpreted very differently. I'm not alleged. I did it. Those words would become the starting point for an entirely new phase of debate. And prosecutors, defense attorneys, legal analysts, and members of the public would spend months arguing about what they meant, and what they did not. The trial transformed a local tragedy into a national conversation. By the time attorneys delivered opening statements, the case had already escaped the confines of the courtroom. Across social media, people had chosen sides. Some were convinced the evidence supported a self-defense claim. Others believed the facts pointed in a very different direction. But inside the courtroom, the discussion was far narrower. Jurors were not being asked to settle internet debates. They were being asked to evaluate evidence. The prosecution's argument centered on a simple point. Austin Metcalf was unarmed. According to prosecutors, whatever disagreement occurred beneath the tent did not justify the response that followed. Their position was that Anthony introduced a weapon into an encounter that otherwise involved a brief confrontation between students. The defense presented a different interpretation. Attorneys argued that physical contact occurred and that Anthony reacted because he feared for his safety during a rapidly developing situation. Their case focused on perception. What did Anthony believe was happening in those moments? What level of threat did he believe he faced? And did that belief meet the legal standard required for self-defense? Those questions became the foundation of the defense strategy. Outside the courtroom, however, the conversation continued to grow. The case became entangled with discussions about race. It sparked debates about juvenile defendants being tried as adults. Fundraising campaigns generated headlines of their own.
The hypocrisy is staggering. They did not release the video publicly because they know it would exonerate Karmelo Anthony. There was video played of the incident inside of the courtroom that showed Austin to be the aggressor, Austin confronting Karmelo, Austin pushing Karmelo, Austin then getting stuck by Karmelo. But it also showed Austin's brother, Hunter, being at the center of the fight. He also put hands on Karmelo, and so did some of their other friends. Witnesses said that at least 5, in fact, not just witnesses, but it's also on video, at least 5 of them jumped Karmelo. The witness never mentioned jumping Karmelo. Other witnesses for Austin never mentioned jumping Karmelo. They jumped him.
False information circulated online, sometimes spreading faster than verified reporting. As public attention intensified, separating established facts from speculation became increasingly difficult. Jurors faced a challenge very different from the one facing the public. They could not rely on viral clips. They could not rely on social media commentary. They had to focus on testimony, physical evidence, investigative findings, and the instructions provided by the court. For days, they listened. For days, they weighed competing versions of the same event. Then came the decision. After reviewing the evidence presented during trial, the jury rejected the self-defense claim. In June 2026, Karmelo Anthony was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 35 years in prison. Legally, the case had reached a conclusion. The verdict had been delivered. The sentence had been imposed. But what happened next would reopen the debate in a way few people expected. Because shortly after the conviction, the public gained access to evidence it had never fully seen before. And suddenly, people who had spent months arguing about the case were no longer relying solely on descriptions. They were watching portions of the timeline for themselves. The release of the footage in June 2026 marked a turning point. For more than a year, most members of the public knew the case through witness testimony, court reporting, police records, and public statements. Now they could examine key portions of the evidence directly. Surveillance footage, body camera recordings, photographs, emergency communications. Together, those materials created the clearest public timeline available since the day of the incident. The footage did not reveal a different event. It revealed a fuller picture of the event that had already been examined in court. That distinction matters. Many headlines suggested the footage changed everything. In reality, the evidence did not create a new crime. What it created was a new level of public access. People could now see parts of the sequence that previously existed only in reports and testimony. The surveillance footage provided context before and after the confrontation. The body camera recordings captured interactions between officers and Anthony shortly afterward. Emergency audio revealed the urgency and confusion experienced by those responding in real time. For many viewers, seeing and hearing those moments firsthand felt different than reading about them. But something unexpected happened. The footage did not eliminate disagreement. It intensified it. Supporters of the conviction argued that the newly released material reinforced the jury's decision. Others focused on the circumstances leading up to the confrontation and continued to believe the self-defense argument deserved greater consideration. Legal analysts offered another perspective. Many noted that video evidence rarely settles every dispute. Cameras have limitations. Audio is not always complete. Angles can be misleading. Context still matters. And context often depends on interpretation. That became one of the defining features of this case. Millions of people reviewed the same material. Millions reached different conclusions. Some saw confirmation. Others saw uncertainty. Some believed the footage answered important questions. Others believed it raised new ones. Yet beyond the arguments, beyond the headlines, and beyond the online debates, one reality remained unchanged. Two families were forever affected by what happened that day. No footage could alter that. No verdict could reverse it. No public discussion could change the events of April 2, 2025. And that brings the story back to the statement that opened this case. I'm not alleged. I did it. Those words became one of the most replayed moments in the investigation. But they never resolved the deeper question that continues to divide people. Because while the legal process answered one question, it did not answer every human question surrounding the case. Austin Metcalf never returned home from that track meet. Karmelo Anthony entered adulthood inside the prison system. Two futures changed permanently that afternoon. Just in different ways. That may be why this case continues to resonate long after the verdict. At its core, it is not simply a story about evidence, court proceedings, or legal arguments. It is a story about escalation. About how quickly ordinary conflicts can become irreversible. About how moments that feel temporary can produce consequences that last a lifetime. The most difficult reality to accept is not how quickly everything happened. It is how ordinary the day appeared beforehand. Students arrived expecting competition. Parents expected updates from a track meet. Coaches expected another school event. No one expected the outcome that followed. And perhaps that is why people continue to return to this case. Because many can imagine themselves in a similar environment. A sporting event. A disagreement. A tense exchange. Most people assume there will always be another moment to step away. Another opportunity to cool down. Another chance to make a different decision. Until suddenly there isn't. The newly released footage has provided the public with the clearest picture yet of what happened before, during, and after the confrontation. But whether it settles the debate remains another question entirely. The verdict may have answered the legal question. But it didn't answer every question surrounding this case. In fact, after reviewing the testimony, the released footage, the police records, and the statements made throughout the investigation, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. This entire case turns on a handful of seconds. That's it. A handful of seconds that changed multiple lives forever. And that's exactly where the next breakdown is going. The next video won't focus on opinions, social media arguments, or headlines. It's going to focus on the timeline itself. Second by second. What witnesses said happened. What the surveillance footage appears to show. What investigators documented. And where those pieces either align or don't. There is one specific moment in that timeline that continues to generate debate even after the conviction, and once it's isolated and examined on its own, it may completely change how some people view this case. Before leaving, share your perspective in the comments. After seeing what was revealed in the newly released footage, has your opinion changed at all? Or do you feel exactly the same as you did before? The discussion around this case is far from over. If you appreciate detailed, fact-driven investigations that go beyond the headlines, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with someone who wants the full story. Because the next breakdown focuses on the few seconds at the center of this entire case. And those seconds may be the reason people are still arguing about what happened long after the verdict was delivered.